Hello and welcome to the Creative Academy, where we are doing today some blue pencil sessions. I'm Eileen Cook and I'm excited to have with me my colleague Donna and a guest today. We have Amanda sitting in with us as she's covering for Crystal, who is away. Amanda is an editor as well as a member of the Creative Academy, so we thought who better to help us out on a little bit of editing. So today on our blue pencil session, we are excited. We are doing a piece from Elissa. And she has a note, so I'm going to read that first because I think it gives us a little bit of context. She says, this scene is from the Act 1 climax. Sisters Scythia, 17, and Zarina, 16, have been following a faint trail of blood looking for their missing little brother, Kobos, 9. In a previous blue pencil scene submission, her brother was 15, so she has aged down now. Griffin is Scythia's warhorse, just so we have some context. And in particular, she says, I'm especially interested in feedback on the emotional impact of the scene. Did it make you feel anything? Donna had some emotional feelings. Donna, why don't you start us off?
Well, I'm so glad that we don't have to read these because I cried twice through it. So, I mean, short answer for me is, did it make me feel something? Yep. I cried at the beginning when I heard when they saw the little brother in the tree, and then I cried again at the end when it was clear that, well, and anyway, I was really moved by the piece. And it was really, I don't know how you two feel about this, but so we see her little brother Kobos, they find him and he's in a tree, and spoiler alert, it becomes clear that he has not survived the lion attack. And so Scythia is enraged and takes off after the lion. And then so then you move out of the emotion into this like really anger. And for a second I was kind of like, but wait, I want to sit with this grief. And I was glad to be able to come back to it because it was like, so anyway, I was just really moved by the whole thing. Like it was exhausting. It was 3 pages of exhaustion for me. So, which is good, I think.
Yeah,
I think that was the goal.
I think for me, one of the things that I wanted to comment on that I also really enjoyed is the feeling of being sort of yanked back and forth emotionally. So the scene opens, they're looking for a brother. Obviously, like we're not reading what comes before this, but I'm guessing there's a lot of tension because they're following a blood trail and they're looking for their little brother. So that's not a good way to start. And so there's a moment where they see the body of the horse below the tree. So you have this moment where she takes the stress away from you because you're like, oh, okay, the little brother's okay. It was just a horse, like, you know, that sinks, but all right. And then she rips that back away from you because then there is the bigger reveal that it is in fact her brother. And she continues to play with that because then, you know, as you say, there's this moment of great sadness, but then rage takes over and she leaps into that and you're in this high action scene. And then for me, what was heartbreaking, because I always cry when animals get it, the horse is then killed in this. So she sacrifices her horse. And again, having read earlier pages, we know how much this animal means to her. So her rage has cost her the life of this horse companion that she's had. And that comes at a second thing. And then again, after all of that, then there again, we have this moment where there's this sadness where she realizes and kind of comes to terms with the fact her brother is gone. Amanda, your thoughts?
I have a lot of thoughts too. I didn't cry like Donna. I can't say I cried, but I held it together. But yes, extremely high emotion scene. Just going off what you were saying, Eileen, about the beginning, about how she discovers her brother and how at first she doesn't notice him and she notices the horse instead. Not only is that really cool and dramatic and it sets up this great tension, but it's also very authentic. I think that's how someone would come upon a scene like that. You don't see everything right away. You know, there is that kind of back and forth. So I thought that was really good. I like the kind of authenticity of that. I was really pleased actually to read this because I think this is such a great scene for a blue pencil discussion because it is a climax scene, not the climax of the entire book, but the climax of the first act. And I feel like so much can happen in these scenes. They're just so great and they're so meaty. And it's like just a scene of such high emotion. And I think like Elissa did such a good job of capturing that at certain moments. One of my favorite lines was when she's like so angry and she's going to shoot the arrow into the lion's eye, and it's like she waits, she holds her breath, she waits for this moment until all Griffin's hooves are off the ground, and then she chooses that moment. It's almost like time has slowed down in this very high action scene, and she's so focused by her rage that she can sort of take that breath in, that pause, and then it's sort of like I felt I took a breath in too at the same time. So I kind of like that. It was very visceral, and I like that her rage sort of kind of crystallizes everything. She kind of tunes everything out. I mean, her sister is there in the scene with her, and we see that her sister's there at the beginning, but it's like her rage has tuned all of that out so that there's just this one sensory experience. And as you guys both said, that scene has to go back and forth, because once that climactic moment is over, then that can all come rushing back. And so I would say, you know, there's so many opportunities too to kind of heighten that sensory experience for the reader, of going in and out of that moment. Like just even the moment of after she conquers the lion and her grief comes back to her, and she can, you know, whatever, she can see the vultures circling overhead. I don't know how quickly vultures come in to circle overhead, but she becomes aware of all those sights and smells, and they come back to her. I think that's there's just a really cool opportunity to even heighten that more. And even to bring in some of that like thematic emotion. Like, I don't know what her relationship was like with her brother. I don't know what was going on between them. I don't know if she has fears, specific fears related to him, or if she has regrets. I don't know, but that's also a good opportunity to kind of bring some of those in as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
funny
gonna
that
actually.
sorry, I was going to say,
say,
you know, as I was scrolling, like following where you were talking about, and I'm already tearing up. Like for me that worked. Kobos would have been so excited to hear she'd use a wrestling throw to escape from a lion. And I guess we have the advantage, Amanda, of having read, this is the 4th time I think we're reading pages from Elissa. And so we have a bit of a sense of her relationship, both with her sister, which is not fabulous, and with her brother. He was older and it was a close relationship. Now I imagine she's a protector as well. Sigaris is absolutely the protector in the family. And so, and that's, as soon as I saw that, that was the second place where I started to cry. It was like, oh, but Kobos isn't there to share that with. Anyway.
So I want to point out just something that I think is important is, so there is a line, for example, the battle fury is worn off. She releases the anger and for a moment feels nothing. Kobos would have been so excited to hear she'd used a wrestling throw to escape from a lion. Then she does a hard break, Kobos. And then another hard break. Kobos would never feel anything again. And then another hard break into the next line. And that for me is really about using space on the page. So understanding that almost creates like a heartbeat as the person is reading. So she could have strung that all together into one paragraph, but I think it's a really good reminder for us to think about where and when we start and end paragraphs, when we sort of break things out. And breaking something out into its own, like a 1-sentence paragraph, is a hard, like it's a punch. Like you are telling the reader, pay attention to this thing. And here, obviously, this is a huge emotional beat. So I think there's some value in having this as its own sort of standalone thing. Now, warning, you don't want to overuse this. You don't want to become the person who, like, everything becomes an important sentence. Like, you know, that kind of thing. But when you do use it, and I think it's used really effectively here, it helps the reader feel that emotional impact. Now, we're not going to get, or maybe we will, but we didn't get, at least in this little piece, kind of what happens next. But my advice would be that maybe our next so now it's our story altogether. Right. I'm with you, Elissa, like we're writing it together, our next chapter. I would want a little bit more breathing space. There was so much action in this, kind of coming into what Amanda's saying, like, now I want to wallow in the emotion of it, and I want the quietness of what has happened to really hit home. So I would lean away from the next chapter being another, like, this is so much action, and it's very visceral, and it's like
exhausting.
It's exhausting. And I think the reader's going to need a little bit of a breath. And you don't often hear that from me. I'm usually the one who's like, more, more, more.
Where's the
But this is a place where just taking a little bit of breath in that next chapter or next scene, I think will heighten this moment.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts, ladies?
I do have one other thought, because you were talking about thinking about the length of paragraphs and the shortness of paragraphs. And I actually think you can apply that same thinking to the length of your sentences, depending on the moment in the story as well. Like there's a moment where, if it's high action, sometimes people say it's high action, you want shorter sentences, you want to get straight to the point, but I also think it's a decision to make, because sometimes if someone's in a red zone, maybe that's a moment where, the sentences could even get longer. Who knows what's going through that person's mind, but it's good, whatever you choose, it's good to have a contrast depending on what the mood of the scene is, what's going on, to consciously vary those sentence lengths as well.
And a great way to practice that is to read your piece aloud.
Mm-hmm.
And I often will read it aloud and just record it on my phone, and then, wait a few minutes and then play it back. And you start to hear sort of the cadence, and writing is almost like a musical piece, right? So just like in a musical piece builds and you sort of feel that thing, looking at, are you finding yourself picking up speed and the things are increasing? Those kinds of things have that weight. So try reading things aloud. That's your free tip of the day. But for Elissa, I'm just going to say, I'm so enjoying this story. You do such a great job of placing us in that scene. I know so very little about this world or what it would be like to fight a lion, but I felt ever so briefly that I did. So if anyone else out there has a scene that they would like us to take a look at, so something that's either from a first chapter or something like this where it's later in the piece, we would be happy to do that. And you submit that to the Blue Pencil session. And otherwise, we look forward to seeing everyone around the Academy. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.